Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge just for you.
And today we're diving into excerpts from a really fascinating book. It explores a pretty provocative idea
Which is?
that common people, regular folks, might actually be capable of doing things we'd usually consider
Yeah.
uncommon, maybe even supernatural.
Right. And this material, it really tries to bridge what we think of as hard science with some deeper concepts, things often found in mysticism.
Exactly. It suggests our own consciousness, our energy. They're way more central to shaping our reality, our health, even our potential than maybe we typically imagine.
So our mission here today is really to guide you through these ideas. We'll pull up the core concepts, the scientific references mentioned, the stories.
Yeah, the goal is for you to quickly grasp what's most important, get those aha moments, without feeling totally overwhelmed by it all.
So get ready to explore this concept that your thoughts and feelings, they aren't just internal experiences, they might be powerful forces actively creating your external reality.
And maybe more importantly, how you might consciously influence that connection.
Okay, let's unpack this.
All right. So the central premise, right from the get-go, is that these perceived limitations we have, the walls we think are solid, maybe they're not.
Not as solid as we assume.
Right. It suggests common people can absolutely breach those boundaries, do things that seem, extraordinary.
The source even brings up that ancient story, Milarepa, the Tibetan yogi.
Yeah, the one said to move to solid rock.
Exactly. And the way it's framed isn't about, magic tricks. It's that his own beliefs weren't confined by the normal rules of the physical world.
And what's compelling, I think, is that the book aims to ground this in the modern world. It talks about scientifically measuring transformations.
Like actual biological changes.
Yeah. Can we see real, measurable changes in the body that back up this idea that common people can do the uncommon? It's trying to find that meeting point. Science and mysticism blended together.
Okay, so how does the source say we get stuck? Behind these perceived limitations, seems like it points to our past.
Yes, very much so. The material makes a strong case that trauma, chronic stress, they don't just mess with your head, they literally anchor your brain and body to the past. Think about Anna's story in the text. After trauma, the emotional response wasn't just fleeting. The stress chemicals, the hormones, they triggered specific genes.
Leading to real health issues.
Significant ongoing health challenges, her body, her brain. They were essentially stuck recreating that past state, emotionally, physiologically.
Which suggests emotions aren't just feelings, they have a chemical basis.
Exactly. The source defines them as chemical consequences of past experiences. The breakdown it gives is something like this. Your senses record info.
From the outside world.
Right. Neurons in your brain organize into networks. If an experience is intense or repeated, that pattern freezes, becomes a blueprint.
And then the brain makes a chemical.
Creates a corresponding chemical and emotion and sends it all through your body.
And the stronger the emotion, the stronger the chemical signature.
Precisely. The brain basically takes a snapshot of the outer experience because something big is happening internally, chemically. That memory gets neurologically branded.
Branded it.
Yeah. The scene is frozen in time in your brain and the emotion that went with it, stored chemically, and, as the source emphasizes, energetically in the body.
So if we keep feeling those same emotions tied to the past, our whole state of being, how we think and feel, gets biologically stuck there.
That's the core idea. You end up cycling through the same thoughts, same feelings tied to yesterday, over and over.
And that leads into what the source calls the thinking-feeling loop. This is where it gets really interesting about how we might be, recreating our own reality.
Yes. So repeatedly thinking the same thoughts builds up these strong neural pathways.
Right.
Like carving grooves in the brain.
Okay.
This establishes a certain level of mind, and often an internal image of yourself. Maybe you see yourself as, always stressed or always unlucky.
And this internal state, this mindset, it affects the body chemically.
It does. It triggers these molecules called neuropeptides. The source calls them molecules of emotion. These signal your hormonal centers. Think adrenals.
Which release stress hormones, for example.
Right. Hormones that cause you to feel the corresponding emotion, stress, anger, sadness, whatever it is. And when you feel that, you're broadcasting an energy signature.
So the feeling then triggers more thoughts that match the feeling, it tracks like.
That's the loop. You feel stressed, your brain immediately serves up more stress thoughts. This is impossible. I'm overwhelmed.
Which fires the same circuits.
Reinforcing that identity, that internal image. which signals more neuropeptides, more hormones, causing you to feel more stressed.
It's a vicious cycle. It literally hardwires the brain and conditions the body.
Exactly. Your body can become chemically addicted to these familiar states, even the negative ones. It just knows how to be angry or sad. It's comfortable, that weird way.
And the source adds another layer about energy centers.
Yeah, it suggests this energy also gets stored or stuck in specific energy centers in the body, linked to the emotions you experience most often, like persistent guilt or fear might pool in the second center, while anger or frustration could lodge in the third.
Okay, wow. So if our body is literally programmed by the past, how do we break out? The source talks about accessing the subconscious, right?
Well, think about a habit. What is it? The source defines it as a redundant set of automatic unconscious thoughts, behaviors, emotions.
Stuff we do without thinking.
Exactly. It's when you've repeated something so many times, your body just runs the program. The body is the mind in that moment. And if you're living from that predictable program state, there's just no room for anything new, anything unexpected.
And the unknown, the unexpected, that's where the possibilities are.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
To create something genuinely new, you can't just use the same conscious, analytical mind that's been running the old show.
You got to get deeper.
You have to get beyond it. Access the subconscious operating system. That's where the real programming happens. The source mentions three minds. Conscious, the thinking, analytical part, neocortex, beta brainwaves. Subconscious, more automatic, midbrain, cerebellum, home of the autonomic nervous system, your body's intelligence. And then the analytical mind itself, the gatekeeper, which needs to quiet down.
And brainwaves are the key to quieting that gatekeeper. Beta keeps us stuck in the conscious mind.
Yeah, high beta is that busy, analytical state, focused outward, maybe stressed, survival mode often.
Yeah.
But slower waves, alpha, theta, they're like the doorway.
The gateway to the subconscious.
Exactly. Access to the operating system. And then there's gamma, which is associated with intense inner focus, insight, bursts of energy.
And getting into that creative state, the source says, involves being fully present.
Huge emphasis on the present moment. Because when you're truly here, you're not lost in the past or worrying about the future. You kind of get out of your own way.
Become pure consciousness.
Pure awareness, not defined by your body, your environment, time, just aware. And moving into alpha and theta lets your autonomic nervous system step up.
The part that knows how to heal.
The part the source says knows how to heal and balance the body way better than your conscious mind ever could. It takes over. And this also leads to brain coherence.
Brain coherence.
Yeah, where different parts of your brain start working together in sync, harmoniously, like a well-conducted orchestra instead of just noise.
Okay, so breaking loops involves shifting our internal state, changing brain waves, accessing the subconscious. But then the source brings in this whole other dimension. Energy, frequency, the quantum field. How does that fit in?
Right. So the source posits that beyond our familiar 3D reality, everything's interconnected. By frequency, by information, in this underlying field, the quantum field or unified field.
So it's not just empty space out there.
Not according to this view, it's potential, it's information. Even down at the subatomic level, particles aren't just tiny balls. They exist in these fields of energy.
And they interact.
They bond together through invisible energy fields, sharing light, sharing information. That's how atoms form molecules, molecules form cells, tissues, organs. Us. We're held together, animated by this unseen energy field.
And this connects to something called quantum information biology. Sounds intense.
It does sound cutting edge.
Yeah.
The idea is that cells don't just communicate chemically like we usually think. They also emit and receive light particles, biophotons.
Light. Our cells use light.
On different frequencies, yeah.
Yeah.
And the source suggests the healthier, more coherent a cell is, the more coherent its light emissions are. The implication is, well, we're literally beings of light, broadcasting energy.
Wow. Okay, so we have our normal 3D reality, space-time, body, senses, linear time, feeling separate. But the source talks about time-space. What's that?
Time-space is presented as the realm of the quantum, the dimension of pure awareness, consciousness itself. It exists beyond our physical senses.
Outside of time.
In an eternal present moment, yeah.
What?
Where everything is interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
oneness, and all possibilities exist simultaneously. Infinite potential.
And the key insight here seems to be about where we put our attention.
Yes. The source states it very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So by consciously pulling your attention off matter, off your body, your environment, the clock, and moving into that present moment, into time-space.
You become that pure awareness again.
Right. no longer defined by 3D limitations. You become aware of different frequencies, different information that exists in this unified field.
And intentional thought in that state can interact with the field.
That's the hypothesis.
Yeah.
Intentional thought combined with an elevated emotion that's crucial while you're in that state of awareness. It's said to direct energy
Through the body.
through the body's energy centers, producing a new level of mind in the brain and literally drawing from a new field of light and information in the quantum realm. This interaction is proposed to move the body, maybe even the external world, back towards balance or towards a totally new state.
And the more elevated the emotion.
The higher the frequency joy, gratitude, love, the more energy you create, which the source claims can lead to more dramatic shifts, spontaneous changes.
That connection. Inner state, energy centers, quantum field, external results. It's mind-bending. So what are some of the practical techniques the source offers? How do you do this?
Okay, yeah, the practical side. A key practice is the blessing of the energy centers meditation.
Based on that idea of stored emotional energy.
Exactly. The idea that these centers, linked to organs and hormones, hold on to that energy. Shame, fear in the lower ones, anger, frustration in others.
And the meditation aims to move that energy.
The purpose is to consciously evolve that stored energy. Move it from the lower survival-based centers up towards the higher ones. Increase your overall frequency.
What does that do?
It's said to activate dormant parts of the brain, especially around the sixth center, the pineal gland area, leading to greater balance, coherence, and the ability to receive insights, information, maybe even visions from the quantum field via the eighth center above the head.
And how does the technique actually work? What do you do?
It involves intentionally slowing your brain waves, getting into alpha or theta. Then you combine an elevated emotion, like feeling genuine gratitude or love, with a clear intention to bless each energy center, moving awareness up the body.
So you direct that feeling.
You direct it. But it's less about forcing something and more about planting a seed. You set the intention, feel the emotion, and then surrender the outcome to your body's intelligence, the autonomic nervous system, and the field itself. Trusting it knows how to bring balance.
And there are measured results.
The source provides them. Shows students achieving significant brain coherence, measurable increases in the energy field around these centers, changes in size, alignment shown in bioenergetic readings.
Interesting. There's also a specific breathing technique mentioned, isn't there?
Yes, and its purpose is quite dramatic.
Yeah.
It's designed to liberate that stored emotional energy from the old thinking-feeling loops very, very quickly. The technique intentionally activates the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight system, but intensely from within, not from an external threat. This internal activation is said to then merge with the parasympathetic, the rest and digest system.
Causing like an energy surge.
A rush of energy moving up from the lower body, the lower centers, straight into the brain.
And this affects brain waves, pushes them higher.
It's specifically aimed at generating high beta and even moving towards gamma brainwaves.
Gamma, that's the super high frequency one.
Very high frequency, but associated here with intense inner focus, heightened awareness, states of knowing. Not the scattered, stressed high beta you get from external chaos. This is about liberating huge amounts of stored biological energy.
And again, measured results.
Quite striking ones shared in the source.
Yeah.
Students producing significant surges of high beta and gamma, achieving very high levels of brain coherence after doing this breathwork, like a reset.
It really sounds like elevated emotions are the fuel for all of this.
Absolutely crucial. The source stresses this again and again. Emotions like joy, gratitude, love, inspiration. They have a much higher frequency, a shorter wavelength, than survival emotions like fear or anger.
And feeling them intentionally does something biological.
The idea is, by cultivating these feelings on purpose, you are chemically signaling new genes in your body before your environment changes. You're preparing your body for a future reality as if it's already happening now.
Like Ginny's story, with the back pain.
Exactly. Severe pain, surgery scheduled. She focuses intensely on feeling health, energy, wholeness. The pain vanishes overnight. Surgery canceled. The source attributes that kind of spontaneous healing to generating the feeling of the future state so powerfully, the body responds.
So it's about reconditioning the body, which is stuck living in the past, to a new future mind by emotionally rehearsing these new states.
Precisely. Because the body, as the unconscious mind, it doesn't really know the difference between an actual external experience and one you vividly create internally.
Through intense focus and elevated emotion.
Right. They mentioned studies like people just imagining playing piano scales creates new neural pathways, almost like physically practicing. Your inner world literally shapes your biological reality.
And the source offers tools for this internal creation, even with your eyes open.
Yes, the mind movie and the kaleidoscope. They're presented as ways to reprogram the subconscious more directly while you're awake and interacting with the world.
What's the mind movie?
It's like a personal trailer for your future. A montage of images representing your desired reality, set to inspirational music. The music is key. It carries the feeling, the energy, and maybe affirmations. It primes your brain and body for that future. Makes it familiar.
As if it already happened.
Exactly. And the kaleidoscope, how does that fit?
It's used in a, let's say, technologically enhanced way. Looking at the patterns while the mind movie music plays is meant to help induce alpha and theta brainwaves, that suggestible state but with your eyes open, a kind of open-eyed trance.
Sort of. It helps your brain link the music to the images, making it easier to recall your future, to biologically remember it. And students report amazing things during these sessions.
Like what?
Smelling scents associated with their future, hearing sounds, feeling physical sensations, seeing incredibly vivid colors. Basically, having internal sensory experiences of that new reality without any external stimulus. They're creating the experience inside, changing their brain and body chemistry.
So it's not just thinking about the future, it's viscerally experiencing it right now, internally.
That's the goal. You cultivate the internal state that matches the desired external reality, so your body starts biologically living in that future, in the present moment.
Which loops back to that idea. Creation isn't about getting something separate from you. It's about becoming the person who already exists in that future reality.
Exactly. Becoming the future self. And the walking meditation is highlighted as a key practice for this.
Walking meditation, how does that work?
It's about literally walking through your day, eyes open, but maintaining that meditative, trance-like state, actively embodying the energy, the frequency, the feeling of your future self with every step you take.
So you're programming those new neural networks while you're actually moving around in the world.
Right. Training your body to operate from that new state of being in your environment. Programming a new personality, essentially, to create a new personal reality. Jace's story is used as an example.
The one who manifested a job.
Yeah, by tuning into the frequency of his desired future job during his walking meditations, holding that feeling, that symbol, consistently.
And this connects to the concept of downward causation of matter. Sounds very physics-y.
It does. It's the source's term for how this internal conscious change can actually influence physical reality. The idea that consciousness, mind, can cause effects downward onto matter.
So changing your energy changes your body.
When you consistently practice shifting your energy from those survival states, fear, anger, lack, to elevated states, gratitude, joy, wholeness, that higher frequency, that coherent energy is what causes the physical changes. Jerry's story is a dramatic illustration.
The brain mass.
Yeah, a diagnosed brain mass disappearing after he consciously, repeatedly shifted his belief, his energy, from identifying as sick to knowing he was well, believing in the future reality more than the current one.
That kind of personal transformation is profound. But the source takes it even further, doesn't it? To a collective impact.
It does. The idea is that this individual work isn't just isolated. When enough people change their internal state, broadcast a more coherent energy signature, it can contribute to a collective shift, a global impact.
Like those peace-gathering projects mentioned.
Those are cited as really compelling evidence. Large groups of people, meditators, intentionally focusing their collective consciousness on peace, unity, love.
And they measured results.
Yes. The reported results from numerous projects over years showed significant drops averaging over 70% in things like crime rates, warfare incidents, terrorism, in the targeted areas, all without any direct physical action, just focused intention.
That's hard to wrap your head around. How does the source explain that?
It links it to the Earth's own electromagnetic field. It discusses research, like from the Global Coherence Initiative, suggesting our heart rhythms, our brain frequencies, they actually sync up with and resonate with in the Earth's field.
Like we're tuned in.
We're in a constant biological feedback loop. We receive information from the field, and we feed information back into it through our consciousness, our energy.
So our collective thoughts and emotions are literally encoding information into the planet's magnetic field.
That's the theory presented, and that information gets distributed globally. So elevated emotions, being higher frequency, more coherent, they create a more coherent global field environment.
Which could potentially benefit everyone, offset the discord.
That's the potential. And this effect gets amplified in groups. through what physics calls constructive interference.
Instructive interferences.
Yeah, when coherent waves meet, they don't cancel out, they add up. They create a single, much bigger wave. Higher amplitude, more energy.
So in group meditations.
When individuals generate coherent fields, heart coherence, brain coherence, through elevated emotions and focused intention, their individual fields combine. The group field energy increases dramatically.
And that powerful field is what facilitates big changes.
That increased energy in the environment is proposed as the mechanism behind collective healings, spontaneous remissions, even mystical experiences reported in large group settings. Stacy's story is given as an example.
Her hearing loss and tumor.
Yeah, healing during a group meditation, involving what she described as a powerful download of light and energy, a transformation happening within that amplified field.
So the potential isn't just personal transformation, but a shift in global consciousness, affecting reality on a larger scale.
That's the ultimate implication presented in the source. Moving beyond communities fragmented by the belief we're just separate physical beings, reacting to crises with fear and blame, toward coming together in elevated states, in love, in creation, especially during challenges, casting a larger, more coherent waves as a global community, unifying consciousness.
Okay, wow. We have really taken a deep dive into these core ideas from the Becoming Supernatural excerpts.
We definitely have. We started with how our past, our traumas, our stress can get biologically hardwired, trapping us in these thinking, feeling loops.
Right, and how accessing the subconscious, changing our brainwaves is key to breaking free from those patterns.
Then we explored that whole other level, energy, frequency, the quantum field. The idea that reality might be much more responsive to our consciousness, our inner state, than we usually think, even down to our cells communicating with light.
And we walk through some very specific techniques. The source offers blessing energy centers, the breathing technique, cultivating elevated emotions.
The mind movies, the kaleidoscope, even the walking meditation, all aimed at reconditioning the body, reprogramming the mind for a new future, embodying it.
And finally, we touched on that really big idea that this isn't just about individual change. It could contribute to a collective shift, creating a more coherent global field, potentially impacting everything from personal healing to global events.
It really leaves you with a pretty profound question, doesn't it? If the source material is pointing towards something real, if our thoughts and feelings truly can influence our biology, our lives, maybe even the world, how consciously are you choosing the energy you broadcast each day?
A powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.